My name is Nicole Cater, your host, founder, and servant leader of Gracefield Community. I want to thank you for tuning in to Gracefield Community Podcast. This is a safe space, a place in which we just share stories of how God has touched individuals' lives all across the world and how they are now impacting the kingdom of God. Thank you for tuning in. Blessings to you.
Hello, Gracefield community listeners. I am so excited that you've chosen to tune into our podcast today. Our goal is that we inspire you through our conversation. We are going to have a nice time with some organic, authentic communication today with Mr. Michael Matney. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Nicole, how are you doing? Thanks for having me
I'm
on.
doing great.
Appreciate this. Thanks for having
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you on today and just to have some conversation. I think you have a unique background that I'm so excited for our listeners to hear about. So before we dive into all the things we want to talk about, please tell our listeners, give us some background, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, Nicole. My name's Mike Matney, and I'm a musician. And I'm from a small town in Southwest Virginia, a little rural community called Richlands. I've lived here most of my life. I've lived in Nashville for a while, and mostly here. When I was a young guy, 18, 19, I worked in a record store around here, and I got the opportunity. Had a little small studio in the back, and I got the opportunity to record an album, just a little 4-track album, and saved up my yard mowing money and stuff. And uh, we had like 200 some copies of it, gave them away, whatever. Well, fast forward about 10 years later, I got contacted to become a collector's item. It was selling for like $100 some a copy, and of course, I didn't have any copies left. But uh, if you fast forward to now, it's like $1,000 a copy, and I've got signed by a couple of record labels, and uh, I've been blessed.
Awesome. Well, definitely sounds like it. I mean, let's just start. You have a talent that I do not have. It is a gift for sure, because nobody has offered me any type of labels for any type of recording for my singing at all. If anything, when I'm singing in the shower, my family is like, close the door. Good.
Well, you're obviously talented.
Well, thank you. Look, stay in our lanes, right?
Right. There you go.
Oh, well, I'm excited today about our conversation because I'm all about just like kingdom business, right? And just talking truths about the gospel. And so I want to ask you, like, in what you do, right? So you've come from a background with music. We know that the music industry can be a lot said about, right? And then there's this aspect of like from rock and roll to folk, and then continuing that into bringing into the gospel. Like, what are your thoughts about taking the gospel in places that it not usually is at, right? It's like not a church setting.
Can't believe you said that. It's the words I've used those words for the last few years. All right. Um, that's the thing about it. My mom, I grew up in church. My mom played piano in church. I've been around music my whole life, and of course, I grew up in the '70s, '80s. I'm an old guy, and I was in the rock stuff, and I went down that road. And for me now, being a musician, I mean, I just recently finished a project with Stevie Salas out of Austin. Stevie's a big time musician, so I'm still deeply into the rock thing. And what that's allowed me to do is it has allowed me to I've went out and toured the country in some smaller clubs and stuff, and I have got a chance to talk to people about it and take it places that it doesn't go. And I made the promise a long time ago, and this is going to sound kind of corny, but I made the promise a long time ago to myself and to him that the bigger that I got, the more people was going to know I was a Christian. And so I'm trying to stick to that. So now it's kind of gave me the opportunity to break into my to the gospel. I'm trying to do the gospel on the side too. Last year, I got considered for a Grammy in the rock stuff. So this year, my goal is to get considered for a Grammy in the gospel stuff to get that.
Yes. I love that. I love it. One of the things I think about is just the Great Commission, right? Like, we are to go out and make disciples. And I think so often, especially if you've been in a Christian community or raised like in the church, like you said, you and I both have been raised in the church, right? I mean, we used to have these tracks, right? It's like, go take this book and pass this book out, or go do this, versus living our lives to where it is a testament of the gospel. And so I love what you're doing, because you are living your life as a musician. You're taking the gifts and the talents that you've been given, but using that to go outside of the four walls and to help disciple, in a sense of bringing the gospel to others. Um, you know, I imagine that that has to be pretty rewarding for you, because you get to do the aspect that you love while you also see the gospel going forth.
I'll tell you a cool story. Just one story that comes to mind. Of course, I've got an Instagram account and stuff too, and I got a message from a guy, and he said that he was the owner of the largest, I think the only rock station in the middle of Russia, right in the middle of Russia. He said, I like your stuff. He said, I like your songs. He said, okay, if I play him, he said, can you send me, copies of them? And I was like, sure, sure. I did. So an hour or two later, I'm sitting there thinking, I said, okay. So I wrote the guy back and I said, well, if you're there in Russia and everything, do you know anybody that might like this kind of music? And I sent him my traditional, the religious music. And he writes back and he says, I love that. He said, I'll play that. And so I thought, yeah, that's cool. If I can do that kind of stuff, then that makes me feel good.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And the thing is, I mean, scripture tells us, right? Like, one may plant a seed, another may water, and then another one will water, and then we'll see it grow, right? And so we never know where those deposits are falling. And so kudos to you for even, I think that's the thing, right? Like, looking for the opportunities
Exactly.
to bring the gospel in, right? It's not necessarily walking around with Jesus written on my forehead. Like,
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Anytime I get an opportunity in a podcast to bring it up or talk about it, and if I can do a podcast talking, speaking directly to it, that's even better. So
yes, yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that, when I was looking at just what you do and your information and so forth, the words personal accountability. And so I imagine that means a lot to you, especially maybe just even in the music industry. So tell me, a little bit about personal accountability. Like, what is that for you?
well, I mean, I feel responsible, for of course my own actions, and I think that the things I do because I am a musician and because that I do have I mean I am in a position I'm in. I have to be careful about things I say and things I do and things I act because it's a reflection of you know, you're supposed to be letting him live through you. And so
Right.
extremely, that's tough. It-
Yes, I imagine, in your sense, like, it has to be tough being around. I mean, and I haven't sat in a rock and roll, like, behind the scenes, backstage, environment. We see all these things that, even in news lines, right? You hear about this, you hear about this person. And so I imagine that it is heavy lifting of temptation that you have to overcome to keep the gospel inside of you and keep him inside of you, like, keep your testimony pure, right?
well,
um
it's easy, you want to influence, but you have to be careful that you're not influenced. You find yourself, I'm a guy, I got some guys in one of the bands I play in, they'll let a few curse words slip here and there. And if I'm not careful, you know what I'm saying?
yes, yeah. And it's so easy, right? Like, to fall into that diverse temptation, right? It's so easily to do. Can I just ask you, like, what are some of the boundaries that you've created for yourself to help you kind of be accountable in that sense?
I don't drink anymore. That, I don't drink. When we go out, we play out and stuff. I mean, I'm I'm the first one back to the hotel, and I don't get out and go. That's probably I probably should socialize more at the clubs. I've got chastised for that and stay out longer than I do and everything, meet more people than I do. But I'm pretty much at my age and everything. I'm ready to go to the house after the show.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I mean, I try to, I get tickled. My bass player, he calls me an oak out on the road, because I don't, sometimes I don't participate in some of their shenanigans.
Yes.
I got,
You know what? One of the things that comes to mind though is when you talk about like having that aspect of doing things differently. I mean, isn't that what the Bible communicates? Is that we're set apart. And so sometimes that is a part of our witness of us, our nose, right? It is our nose that sometimes is the witness. I recall there was a circumstance where I had a family member and some years had gone by and this family member like called and was like, I'm so excited. Someone just talked to me about Jesus. I've accepted Jesus. And I remember being super excited for them and then being like, did I ever talk to them about Jesus? Like, did I ever say, do you know Jesus? Can I share something with you about Jesus? And at first I was feeling pretty guilty. Like I was beating myself up, which y'all, that is my if I was to sit here and say this is my opposite of superpower, this is my vulnerability weakness, is like being harder on myself, right? And so I was feeling bad in the sense of like, man, like I don't know if why did it take somebody else to say something if I didn't say anything? And I actually told them and I said, I'm so sorry. I think I failed you. I think that like, could this have happened sooner if I said something to you years ago, being that I knew you? And they gave me one of the greatest responses that sticks with me. And they said, one, it wasn't time. My heart was not ready to receive. And it said, two, you did witness to me through all your no's, through all the times that we as a family, maybe we're coming together drinking, you're like, no, I'm not doing that today. Or maybe when we are coming together and everybody else is cursing and you're choosing like, I'm not using words like that. Or she was like, even in the example of like how you treat people, it was like, how can you be so kind when this situation, like I'm cussing this lady out, right? And so there was that thought of like that is the witness. I never did say Jesus name, but all of those deposits, what led to when that person did come, she had a reference point of what it looks like to live a life with Christ.
I love it. I'm glad you told me that story. That's,
Yeah.
that's perfect. That's a perfect example of that.
Yeah. And I think that like as you were saying, like, I get it. Like I'm the one that's like, oh, I'm going home or I'm not participating in this, or we're in our room when everybody else is maybe having a quote unquote good time. But that is a part of the witness. And it's a part of the sacrifice, right? Like we signed up for this when we signed up to follow Christ.
Listen, I'll say this. I've sit there and I'm making myself out to be a goody two shoes, but I have failed gloriously at times.
Hmm.
So, uh, yeah, I'm, I'm human.
Yes. I think too, about a few months ago, I don't know, maybe even a year ago now, right? I was just really sitting and reading some of Paul's writings, and I came to a point of recognizing the whole aspect of like if eating meat would offend my brother, right? And the
Yes,
thought concept of like eating meat's not wrong, right? Like it's not wrong. Nowhere in the Bible does it say do not do this, right? And what he was essentially saying is that if it would cause them to see my witness differently, then I won't do it in their presence, right? And so even when it comes to the aspect of drinking, like I was one that, let me tell you, I was drinking before the age of 21. I had my college days. Why I want to say why my parents let me, but why I even chose to go to school at University of Nevada, Las Vegas, of all places, right? So there were definitely days of like heavy drinking. And as I became an adult and as I continued like and started really diving into my journey with Christ, like it wasn't until recently that it was like, wait a minute, I shouldn't do this, not because you say it's wrong. Now, yes, you say you should not get drunk, but you've never said it's wrong to have a glass of wine. You've never said that it's wrong to partake in this. But yet, if me doing it at a restaurant where others that I tomorrow will be speaking and ministering the gospel to is going to cause them to question the gospel that comes forth, then that means I shouldn't be doing this. And so even the recognition of like, hey, there's things that I used to do, and we're daily, it's a daily choice, right? His mercies are new each day. Just like God makes a choice to give us new mercies each day, I need to make a choice to love him in my actions each day. And like you said, we're going to drop the ball. All have sinned and fallen short. I'm going to drop the ball at times, and thank the Lord for his grace that I could come right back in and say, hey, let me correct this, right?
Um, I heard somebody say one time that they were deserving of a double helping of grace. So I guess that would be me. You know,
Right.
I'm really counting on it.
Yes. Well, look, so many of us are, me included. I think there's a reason why I can talk about like a grace-filled community, because that's what it is, right? We all are in that grace, not a grace that says, hey, this is permission to do, but a grace that says, when you have done, he's still here and loves you with open arms.
Yeah, but there's nothing, that should separate you from that. You're exactly right.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to, we're talking about the musician side, but I recall saying something about insurance. So tell me, what do you do and how does that come together?
That kind of pays the bills. I mean, these days, being a musician, I mean, it's tough. I'm an indie musician. I don't have a gig with a major label or anything. So, it's always about the money and finances, supporting yourself and stuff. So my dad, we've had he's had an insurance agency for years in town. So he's 87 now, and I come back and I'm running that. We both have farms here. And so it's I mean it's okay. It's you get to serve the community, and at the same time, I mean, it pays the bills.
Yes. I hear that, right? Pay the bills. Somebody has to pay the bills.
I got a friend. I got a friend over in the UK. It's in a band, and recently he told me, he said several years ago. So he actually ran across Mick Jagger on the street, and he said he was going to a session. Both of them passed, and he spoke right quickly to him and asked him, said, do you have any advice for up and coming musician, struggling musician? So Mick Jagger walked on. He says, yeah. I said, never give up. And he said he got on down the street a little bit and turned around, your day job.
Uh,
Yeah. So the insurance agency is my day job.
yes. Yeah. Okay, great. And I imagine, I mean, we were talking about the musician side, but like you said, like insurance is a way that you also interact with people. You get a chance to be there, even in times where they're making hard choices and hard decisions. Have you found that that also leads to a way that you bring the gospel through?
Uh, yes. I mean, absolutely. And where I live at, I mean, there's a church every 100 yards. I mean, I'm right smack dab in the middle of the Bible.
Right.
Everybody knows each other, and everybody knows each other from church, and it's I love that about my community. And so that's one of the good things about getting to work with the public.
Hey, let's take a quick break to tell you about Grace-Filled Community.
Grace-Filled Community is an organization that focuses on the primary principles of the Church of Acts, centered around building communities that impact the kingdom of God. We do this through 3 core extensions. 1, Grace-Filled Church Network, where we empower churches and nonprofits for God's success and growth. We offer tailored growth strategies rooted in biblical principles that will help you expand your reach and impact your communities. Just like the early church, we focus not on attendance and numbers, but on discipleship, providing leadership teachings and trainings to today's ministry leaders. Our second extension is Project of the Grace-Filled, where we provide biblical counseling, mentorship, workshops, and events that are dedicated to encouraging individuals to live a life filled with grace and purpose. Rooted in the understanding that all have fallen short and are a working project, let us help the individuals in your community grow as they walk with God and experience the fullness of His love. Our third extension is the Grace-Filled Business. Grace-Filled Business is here to help small faith-based business owners develop their business in a way that honors God, it brings increase, and allows them to pour back into His kingdom through marketplace ministry and financing His kingdom. We do this through our 15 years of experience of virtual administrative work, digital marketing, business development, and consulting.
Welcome back.
I'm looking here and I'm like, oh my gosh, see how fast time gets to fly on us, right? Um, I want to ask another question though. When we talk about struggles, I for sure have had my own share of struggles and have daily struggles, right? I think there's a reason why, like I mentioned earlier, like God's mercies are new every day. I think there's a reason why we're told to renew our mind. I think there's a reason why we're told to meditate on His word day and night, right? Because there are struggles that we will have. We have our natural human body that carries struggles. We're fighting a spiritual warfare. Then we have this mental aspect that we have to take care of, right? For our mental health. Then there's the emotional components. And yes, Michael, you are a male. I happen to be a female that deals with like things like perimenopause. And so there's all these emotions also present. But when I think about struggles, like it can be easy to like take those struggles and just put them behind like a closed door. Um, or even sometimes putting them behind like the cross. So what are your thoughts when it comes to like the struggles that happen in life?
Oh gosh. For me, I mean, I found that the hardest times I've ever faced, uh, my sister overdosed, and back about 2018 or so, and my mom died like a couple of years after that. And
Mm,
those things for me, I mean, those were devastating. But I found, and then I struggled with addiction years ago too. It's probably, I don't know, it's been 30 years ago or so. But I can remember those times in my life when uh, I was at my lowest or whatever struggles. That I found comfort and I felt the closest to Him during those times. And that for me, I've just always turned to Him when I hit that point where I've got to have help. You know, I find that's the answer for me as far as the struggles go. Is prayer. A lot of prayer.
right.
So I
Yeah.
guess what you're asking is that kind of what you're.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I think struggling with God on your side essentially means that you experience difficult situations in a different way, right? Like, I say it, I know we hear it all the time. Like, I don't know how to do life without God. And I'm grateful, as I'm sure you are, being raised in a church. Like, even when it was at times where I was there because I had to be there, I was told to be there, but there were deposits being imparted in my spirit even when I was there unwillingly, right?
There. You can't get out, can't get away from it.
Yes. And so when I hit difficult times, even in my season of turning away from God and difficult times, it was like it was in there. And it was like there's something to hold on to. There's a hope, there's a faith. Even when I was wrestling with doubt, right? There was still this aspect of like, but what if? Because all of this had been imparted into me. I had heard and it had hit into my spirit. And so I like how you said, like, just struggling with God on our side.
I'm so thankful for that understanding, and I'm so thankful that my parents, like you say, I was raised in a home that was a church home.
Hmm.
Home. And yeah, you get that once you get that in you. I think that's I don't know if you could say it's the calling or if it's there. Can't get away from
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's the thing that I encourage people today, that especially parents, like, um, sometimes I go to these events and they say like, "Hey, what would you say to like new parents?" Like, I'm having being a mom of twins, having been a mom of teenagers now, having lost a child. They say, "What would you say to, a new parent?" And my thing I would say is keep them as close as you can to community, that a faith community, because in all that I've seen, and even in my own life experience, it's that when you have them around community of like-minded believers, even though they may veer off, right? There's this aspect of like the Bible says, like, train up a child in the way that he may go, and he will not depart. Like, they may veer off, but they come back home, right? And it's so much easier when you're around community of like-minded people that can encourage you, that can uplift you, that you can build this faith walk together, because it's not easy to do alone.
Nicole, I like you. You're a good person.
Look, thank you. Thank you. I like you too. Like, I'm excited to dive into your music. I do want to say too, as we talk about all of this, like, when it comes to your music and what aspect, like, how early did you start? How early did you start? When did you know, like, hey, I want to do this?
Well, my mom, like I said, I grew up with my mom being a piano player in a church. And when I was 6 years old, I can actually remember, you got to remember the times was different then. I can remember getting out of school at first grade and walking across the street into a neighborhood and taking lessons with a lady named Mrs. Hubbard and walking back. And that was in the first grade. So, yeah, I've been at it quite a while.
Yes. Okay, so how has your faith affected your music?
Uh, well, you know, a lot of times now when I sit down to write a song, I'll have to struggle to write a secular song, because I want to, write a faith song. I mean, I think about it. I think about it constantly as far as my music goes. And right now, again, I'm getting ready to go down a road with a gospel album.
Mm.
I'll tell you just about it right quick if I can.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was gonna ask like what's coming up for you, but please do tell. Like,
recording. I've started on it already, and like a couple of weeks ago, I recorded a couple of the songs. My I got a friend that runs a recording studio named Jay in Nashville on Music Row, Jay's place. He got some great musicians to do it. I didn't play on it. I just wrote the songs, and uh, my brother-in-law sang on it. He plays drums for the Little River Band. He sang on it, and a guy named Michael Lusk sang on it. And I'm really pleased with how it's coming out. So my idea is to put out an album. I just want to just write the stuff and let some other guys do it, some really good musicians, and get it out there. So I've been trying to think of how I can do that and still be involved, my name and stuff on it. So I'm thinking now. I've got a buddy that we make some videos for the songs and stuff together. I sent you a couple of them. We've been talking about it with the new AI and all that stuff. Now we're thinking about making. This is going to sound silly, okay? But we're thinking about making a Muppet band,
oh,
for the gospel stuff and do the videos and everything for the. So
yes. Well, look, you said it's gonna sound silly, but in today's time, as I mentioned, I have three teenagers, and I don't know. Have you heard of this skippity toilet thing?
no,
Okay, let me tell you, nothing is as silly as this. And this toilet is like blowing up. I think it's like skippity doo. I can never say it right. Skippity doo, skippity doo. Our listeners, if you have teens, you probably know what I'm talking about. But it literally is a guy's head coming out of a toilet singing a song. And it has gone viral. There are toys in Walmart representing this. I mean, it is crazy. And they pulled up a video and said like, "Mom, this is what skippity thing is." And I'm like, what am I wasting 3 minutes of my life on right now? But the reality is it has reached, I can't even say somebody, it has reached millions of people um through the toilet.
I have got a 6-year-old grandson, 5-year-old, 6-year-old grandson. I'll have to check this out.
Yes, Yes, I'm telling you. And I guess there's people that have also like repeated it. It's become a huge thing. And I was looking at the video, like, am I watching a head out of a toilet sing a song? Like, is this what we're doing?
You think the Muppet thing then.
Yeah. So all that to say, like, I think the Muppet is an excellent idea.
That's funny.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. You know what? You didn't say some of this, but I feel like I would be doing a disservice to our audience not to just mention some of the spaces that you've been in. Because I know when I was reading through it and I'm like, Michael, you've done some things, right?
Yeah, it's
So
hard to what he wrote, so go ahead. What?
yeah, I'm like, I'm just gonna go into it. So for our audience, let me just tell you, Michael started piano lessons at age 6. And when he was 8, his music was on the radio. Music on the radio captivated him, and he started to play the guitar. So he was doing piano at 6, guitar starting at 8. He had moved several times as a child and got accustomed with having to make new friends. And so that was a constant thing in his life. And so one day a friend invited him to his basement, where his older brother and some friends were jamming with the electric guitar. I'm going to pause there. I want you to finish telling that story. I'm like, let me pause because you probably can tell it better than can read it. But I was like, wow.
Well, this was the 70s, and this was when music was just, rock was just really going. Well, these guys, a friend of mine, his brother in high school, we were like junior high and stuff. So his brother had a band, and we went to the basement and listened to him, and I was just blown away. I mean, at that point, I said, that's what I want to do. And I never looked back since then. I was always from as soon as I got out of high school, my parents knew. They just sent me to Nashville. At 18, I was living in Nashville, so deep into it. And that lasted for, I thought I was going to be big time. And then that lasted for about a year. And then I was living out of my car and I came back, and that's when I recorded that album my first album. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I noticed, I mean, you mentioned living out of your car, and I also read that you saved up yard mowing money.
Yeah. For the first album. I mean, it was, the way it worked is a friend of mine who was an old guy, had a record store in town, and he always wanted to have a recording studio. So he had a little machine in the back, a little 4-track recorder, and I worked for him, kept the store open some, and he would let me go in the back of the evening and record. He'd record me on his 4-track machine. Well, uh, he passed away, and I had recorded enough songs on that 4-track recorder that I was able to go to Nashville and get this pressed up, with the money that I'd saved up. And
Yes.
like I said, we gave them away at shows and gave them away to people. We had no idea that, they would become worth something one day.
Right.
So crazy to me.
Right. Well, I think that's even a testament to our listeners that are entrepreneurs, our listeners that have these goals and dreams, right? Like, so often I always say, like, you see me on the mountaintop, but you don't know the story of all I went through to get to this point that you see today. And I love how you acknowledge that. Like, it was mowing yards, it was living in your car, where some of the sacrifices that were made to really invest into this thing that you want to do.
I didn't even know what was going on. I was away from it, and I was told that it had done this over the years, so it was kind of a shock. But out of that, it's come a lot of great stuff. I mean, so it's like I said, it's been a blessing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I just want to say, y'all, so Michael has a music degree as well. Is that correct?
I have a degree in recording industry management from Middle Tennessee State University, a RIM degree, and
Awesome. Awesome.
I went back later in life and got that, so I'm kind of proud of that too.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. So, I think that especially kind of in all the resources and things that we have, and don't get me wrong, I am a YouTube university girl, right? Like, I'm like, you can go on YouTube, you can learn anything. But I commend you for choosing to go back and really get that, I'll say that paper behind the aspect and the education and spending the time, right? The time and your resources to get that music degree, especially hearing the humble beginnings in which you started from.
And nobody in my family had ever had a college degree, so I was the first one in my family to have one. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to you. I'm sure that's a huge deal. And again, it changes the trajectory for the family, right? It's something that breaks, as we talk about like those spiritual battles that we fight, right? It breaks those generational curses and says, hey, I'm going to be the one to do this.
Yep. I've got a nephew right now that I'm really talking to, and he's inspired me now. But see, he's a young guy, and he's going to take it on. He's going to the seminary, for 4 years, and so I'm just encouraging him. His mom was the mom. I told you I lost my sister, for overdosing. So that's her boy, and to see him doing what he's going to do, she'd be so proud.
Wow. Wow. That's so touching. So touching. Well, Michael, I know that our time is running short. There's only so much time we get in these podcasts, but I do want to say, I know you talked about that you're working on this album. You've written the songs for it, others are singing it, but tell us a little bit more about what's coming up next for you, and definitely how we can stay connected. How can we follow you? How can we support you? How can we get your music?
All right. So for the rock band, for Matney, you can find me at matney.rocks, and there's videos on YouTube under Matney Music. We've got a YouTube channel there. It's doing pretty good. You can find me on Instagram at Matney Band. I've got a Facebook page. We're out there. Anybody can reach out to me on Messenger anytime. The band, I think we're going to be I think we're going to Florida in May. We're doing a festival there in Orlando, and they get more information on the website about that. And I know that we got a thing in Houston in May. We're going to be getting out some this summer. We've not got out. My band is based in Austin, and I'm here in Virginia, so it's kind of tough to working back.
Yeah.
We're finally going to be getting out this summer and stuff. So yeah, check us out, please.
Awesome. I love it. And, I am a Texas girl. I'm right here in Texas. So I'm so excited to hear Austin is coming this way, Houston. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but there's nothing like hopping in a car and taking a drive for some good music.
Great. Yeah, that's very cool. Just stay in touch, and I'll let you know when we're going to be that way.
Absolutely. Well, I love it, Michael. I want to thank you for jumping on, being a part of our podcast, even just sharing your story of how God has walked with you through life and the struggles and impacted you, and how you are using that to also just impact others. And so thank you again for being on today.
For having me.
Absolutely. Oh, it's been my pleasure. I look forward to catching some of your music performances, especially here in Texas. But listeners, I do want to encourage you, Matney, go check out Matney Rocks. He has some amazing music there that you would enjoy. And as always, we want to support the community that's advancing the kingdom of God. And so let's do what we can to be of support. Again, thank you for being on. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. As always, Graceville Community is a space where we desire to inspire and encourage you to be a part of community that is doing and learning about the kingdom of God. And so if you are looking for community anywhere throughout the global, we are here for you. We do have an online community base, and we would love to connect you with a word teaching community near you. And so feel free to reach out, gracevillecommunity.com. Take care. Thanks again, Michael.
Bye, Nicole.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Graceville Community Podcast. We would like to invite you to visit gracevillecommunity.com. Graceville Community is all about doing church the way Church of Acts did, using 5 main principles that we see in the book of Acts. Sharing resources as believers pooled their possessions and resources to support those in need, as we see in Acts 2:44. Through hospitality, the early Christians practiced hospitality by opening their homes to others, as we see in Acts 2:46. By financial aid, the church in Antioch sent financial aid to believers in Judea during a time of famine, as described in Acts 11:29. Prayer and encouragement, they supported each other through prayer and encouragement. as we see in Acts 4 and 24. And finally, spiritual guidance. The apostles and elders provided spiritual guidance and teaching to help strengthen and build the community, as we see in Acts 15:30. I would like to encourage you, if any of those areas are areas in which you are in need or can contribute, please reach out to Gracefield Community. We are working together across the world with ministries and individuals alike to help bring back the Church of Acts.